Should I be more of a specialist or should I be more of a generalist? And how does that affect my career? Now, that's a question that we will be discussing in today's session here at the Corporate Mechanic. Hey there everybody, welcome back. My name is Joey and you're here at the Corporate Mechanic, a show that features topics of management and leadership, something that will definitely help you in your careers as you progress, in your career. So today we have a very simple but very interesting topic, which is, should I be more of a specialist or a generalist? Now, in order to answer that question, we first have to be able to define the difference between the two. When we talk about a specialist, this is essentially a person, an employee, a worker who masters a specific type of work, a specific type of industry. If for example, you are an accountant, you're in the finance team, and if you want to specialize, you can probably, of course, take your professional license in accounting. You can take up a master's of finance. You can eventually become a PhD, or just simply, even in your experience, try to become the best in that field, in that area. You specialize. Now, a generalist, on the other hand, is someone who does not specialize in anything. He has no specialization. Oftentimes, this is what we call a jack of all trades. Okay? Meaning that person knows a lot of stuff on a lot of things, but do not or cannot spend time specializing in one area. Okay? So he knows a little bit about this, a little bit about that. So somebody who knows accounting, but at the same time also does sales, but at the same time can also market, also knows the operations and stuff like that. Somebody who's been doing a lot of things in a lot of areas. Okay, this can be a specific type of competencies. It can be differences in industries or whatnot. Okay, so those are the two basic things that a person can do in his career. Either you specialize in one area or you dabble on a lot of other areas. Personally, I'm more a jack of all trades. Okay, so I've been, in different fields. I've done a lot of things, and that has led me to where I am right now in my career. Okay, so what are the pros and cons? Of course, the pro with being a specialist is that because you have spent a lot of time and effort, there are only a few people that can do that. Okay, it's very rare to find somebody who is a specialist in a specific area, somebody who is considered very good in a specific area, and that commands a high price. Now, if you want to be very marketable, if you want to be somebody who is looked at as an expert, a subject matter expert in the field, that's the advantage of being a specialist. There are only a few people, and therefore that commands a high price. Okay. The disadvantage of being a specialist, on the other hand, is that if that specialization that you have eventually becomes obsolete or is replaced or changes, then your level of marketability drastically goes down. Okay? So that becomes problematic. So just to give you an example, in my career, I started my career as a COBOL programmer. I was in the IT industry. I was a programmer. And the programming language that I was using was a mainframe language. Now it came to a point that since a lot of people were shifting in other languages, there were some scarcity in that area. So those who were left knowing that skill set were really commanding a high price. Because these are what you call your dinosaur programmers, so people who know ancient languages or something like that. But then again, it came to a point that the demand for such skills also went down. It became scarce, but then it was replaced by other technologies, other languages. So nowadays, it's very hard to find people who have that skill set, but at the same time, nobody really needs that skill set anymore. Okay? And so these people had a harder time looking for other jobs. Okay, so that became a disadvantage. Now, for generalists, the advantage of that, being a generalist, is that since you know a lot of things, you dabble in a lot of things, you get to become more, it's easy for you to find a job, okay, on a specific area. Because there are many areas that you can work on. So if you know something, a little bit of something on a lot of things, then it's easy for you to be involved, okay, to be involved in something. But then again, unlike the specialist, you cannot command a high price because you're not an expert. You're capable. You're hireable. Let's put it that way. People can hire you, but they don't see you as an expert in that field. And so therefore, you cannot command such a high price. But since you have a lot of areas that you can work on, the opportunities for you are a lot more than that of a specialist. Okay, you do not get impacted by changes in industries, changes in technology, changes in skill requirements or job requirements because you have a lot on your belt. Okay, so the opposite side, the disadvantage, that you're just like everybody else in terms of that specific skill or area that you are good at. Okay, so that's the difference. Now, people are obviously inclined to do one or the other. And to really answer the question, which is better, my answer there would be, it depends. It depends on what? It actually depends on that stage in your career that you are at. Okay. My suggestion, and this is just me, and this is also based on my personal experience, okay? At the early stages of your career, it's actually better to specialize. It's actually better to be the best in that area that you are working on. If you're an accountant, become the best accountant. If you're an IT guy, if you're a programmer, become the best programmer. If you're a salesperson, become the best salesperson. Specialize in your area, specialize in your fields. There's actually a lot of merit because it helps you get up the corporate ladder. It helps you become more marketable, as we have already discussed. Okay, but then again, once you go up the corporate ladder, it actually makes sense to become more of a generalist. You cannot go up the corporate ladder and be at the top by being a specialist. No, it cannot be that way. You have to come to a point wherein you have to acquire other skills in other areas. Okay? So, why? Why is that important? It's important because as you go up the corporate ladder, you tend to, the value is not on your individual output. Your value comes from knowing the interrelationships between other areas of the organization, between other industries, being able to see the big picture. And generalists can do that because they see the big picture. They can actually see how things interconnect with one another. If you someday want to become a CEO of a company, then being a generalist is very important. You cannot be an effective CEO if all that you know about is simply the operations. You cannot be the best CEO if all that you know about are the finance. You will have challenges managing groups, corporations, if you look at it that way. I know that from personal experience. I've handled several companies, and you have to know a little bit about everything. You have to know about finance, you have to know a little bit about sales, marketing, the operations of the company, essentially your business model. You have to see how every piece of the organization works. And that requires a generalist mindset. Okay? So both are important. When I started my career, I specialized in IT. I specialized in project management. So that was my specialization for the longest time. Okay, it was in project management. But as I grew, as I expanded my competency, I am now pretty much a generalist. Okay, so that's my take on whether or not you should become a specialist or a generalist. I do hope that that gave you some insight on how you would want to map out your career in the future. Now, one thing before I end this episode that I would also like to emphasize to you guys is the fact that regardless of whether you become a specialist or a generalist, both of these require that you have a passion for learning. Being a lifelong learner, you cannot specialize if you have no passion to learn and to grow. You cannot become a generalist as well if you don't have a passion to learn other things outside what you're currently doing right now. So both require a passion for learning. And I do hope that as you continue to watch these videos, you learn a lot more about management and leadership. If you have some questions, feel free to write that in our comment section and I will be definitely glad to answer that. Okay, please do subscribe to this channel, hit on our notification, put in you'd like to get notified for all videos so that whenever we come up with something new, you can actually see that and be able to learn some more. All right, so thank you guys for watching. Stay safe and stay blessed.